Can we just talk about anxiety for a moment? I'm sure it's on high alert for most people these days. It seems we all have some level of it. And I just have to share with you a story of a friend. It's so bad for her. Even her emotional support animal is now on anti-anxiety meds. It's true. What can you do? Right? What can you do in this world these days? Well, it turns out there's quite a bit that we can do. Let's just say it's all part of living an unexpected life. Hello and hello again. I'm Marianne Banister with the Claire Marie Foundation. If you've been following our story, you know our foundation is all about raising awareness of adolescent and young adult melanoma. And the reason I'm so passionate about doing this is because I lost my daughter Claire to melanoma when she was 17 years old. And honestly, it all could have been prevented just if the medical community knew enough about this disease to help us along the way. Claire was just 14 when she was diagnosed, and I'm telling you, just reflecting on the kid she was at that time, she was pretty happy. She was pretty low key. She was so excited about entering her freshman year of high school. She was an athlete. She was an artist. She was all wrapped up in this aerobic competition that was going to be going on at her school. In short, she had the world right in front of her. And this was the last thing we expected because she took no risks. She didn't tan. She wore sunscreen. But what we didn't know was that her hormones could kick in and create melanoma in her body. We were blindsided as a family, absolutely gobsmacked over the whole thing. We just couldn't understand it. But the best thing, the very first thing we did in deciding this, her dad and I decided that we needed to get her somebody special to talk to, a therapist who could help her navigate all that was ahead of her, because we knew that mental wellness can help your body heal and fend off and fight the raging disease that is cancer, among other things. So we found what I call Claire's guiding light, an absolute wonderful person, April Moran, who is joining us here today. Hi, April. Thank you. It's so good to see you.
Glad to be here, Marianne.
I could go on and on for a good, 10, 15 minutes just with your accolades and your credentials, but we're going to keep it short and most basic here. That I want the listeners to know that you have 25 years experience, at least, not to age you or anything, but in specialty really of like anxiety disorders. And you're also with the very distinguished Beck Institute as well. And of course, so proud that you're part of our Claire Marie Medical Advisory. And I always love talking with you as a friend, as an advisor, getting insight on what we can do with our mental health and our physical health, and how it all still comes together. So just starting off this conversation, how important is your mindset when you're dealing with something like a chronic disease, especially cancer?
Well, that's a great question, Marianne. It's really important that a person has a space to be able to process and understand what is happening emotionally, a severe loss of control. So you look at people who have never had cancer before, and once they are diagnosed, over half of them meet criteria for generalized anxiety disorder. So let's talk about what that is. GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, it's a marked sense of fear and constant foreboding, a feeling of dread marked with sleeplessness, irritability, indecisiveness. So it's important to understand that anxiety does the most to interfere with the processing of information. So one of the most important reasons to talk with a therapist, a counselor, is that the person struggling with cancer needs a place where they can manage that anxiety and make the best decisions going forward. untreated anxiety is actually connected to a difficulty in following a doctor's orders for treatment. And so, if we can get the person with cancer's anxiety managed, then they can move forward in a way that they can show up for themselves for the treatment.
Well, and starting off just with the basic diagnosis, I always tell families if you're going in and something of this magnitude, the patient should never go by themselves. I don't care if they're 25, if they're 50. It's so much your brain is taking in, isn't that right? That the anxiety can overtake all that and you're really not going to absorb. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly right. Because anxiety interferes with the processing of information, we have a simple, um, well known tool in my field, name it to tame it. And so when you're able to say, I'm anxious, I'm
Mhm.
struggling, uh, I'm afraid, you've now involved the part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, that can problem solve. So, having a dedicated notebook that you take every time to your treatment provider is essential, but having that other person with you is also just as important.
Are there some tricks you can do to calm yourself when people are going through a cancer? I know in melanoma, there's been so many times it's scan anxiety. You know, a
Yeah,
CT scan is coming up or a PET scan. Um,
right.
Almost like you don't want to go because obviously there can be good news, but you're just petrified it's going to be bad news. How can you manage and just make that happen without just getting yourself sick over it?
Right. So, anxiety is based in what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? So, being able to notice and observe where you're going in your brain and drop into what is. What is today I'm to show up for this scan. Spending time in the what if is going to increase my anxiety
Okay.
and make it more difficult for me to problem solve. And so it's a strategy I work with a lot of clients who are managing cancer in their lives. So catching themselves spending time in the what if, uh, the anxious moment,
Mhm.
anxiety, fear, sadness, our emotions burn out at around 90 seconds, but we attach them to a story. And it's the what if I never get better story? What if the cancer comes back? What if the scan doesn't read the way I want it to? And
Right.
noticing without judgment, okay, I'm going to a dark place. Let's stay in the here and now. I don't get that answer. What I
Mhm.
do know is I'm going with my supportive person and I've got some tools to manage. Staying in
Well,
the here and now.
staying in the here and now, and then does that help with, let's say, some of the symptoms that can go along with anxiety, like sleeplessness, headaches? I mean, you can say, I want to stay in the here and now, but you just have to, is it like you just meditate yourself to it, that you
Well,
talk into it?
so there's two things. So this first piece of advice is for the caregivers, the people that love and are on the journey with the person who has cancer. Um, Empathy is the most powerful human regulator, right? So you want to give somebody a message, connect before you redirect. I'm noticing you feel anxious, fearful. That has to be hard. Validation actually drops high emotion.
Mhm.
When people feel seen and understood, they can be with what is, they can be with the hard stuff. For the person with cancer, there's something called a tip scale, TIPP.
Right.
And I work really hard to teach these very specifically to everybody. And I do it here in the office, which at times can be a little entertaining. So the T
Right.
is drop the temperature. So I give them a choice. You want to put your face in a shallow bowl of ice water, or you
Oh,
want to put um, a cold mask underneath your eye area here. What
right.
happens is these nerves underneath your cheeks connect to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve switches you from fight flight to rest and digest.
Okay.
And that dropping quickly of temperature, cold water regulates high emotion. So that's the T.
Okay, that's fascinating. I
It
love.
really is. It really is. The I is intense exercise. So, Marianne, right before I got on with you, I was feeling
Right.
a little bit of anxiety. I stepped over there and I cranked out 30 jumping jacks. So, getting anxiety is extra energy,
Okay.
expelling it. And the
Okay.
last two are really going to help with sleeplessness and tension. Like people with cancer, their body can actually hurt because they're so tense. So the first one is progressive muscle relaxation. And there's actually a really specific way to kick off the vagus nerve of you want to have your tongue on the top of your mouth. You want to be able to act like you're biting on a lemon and close your teeth down. And then we move through the rest of the body, all four stages, to do progressive muscle relaxation, tensing for 30 seconds, releasing. Clients do this when they wake up in the middle of the night and they're ruminating. The last P is paced breathing. So always start with out or start with out for 8, which is kind of hard to do, actually. Most of us are used to take a deep breath, but we're going to
Right.
start out for 8, keeping the hand up on your chest as still as possible while pushing your lower belly out. That's
Okay.
the deep breath. So
Okay.
out for 8, in for 4, out for 8. And some clients say, I feel a little dizzy. Well, there's been a carbon dioxide exchange,
Yeah.
which triggers the vagus nerve and drops high emotion.
Well, because oxygen, and I always tell people, coming from my profession in public speaking and being on camera and stuff, that when you get nervous, you always hear like the groom that passes out at the wedding. It's because their knees are
Right?
and they're not breathing. So
Yeah.
one great way just to calm yourself is just to do that deep kind of yoga breathing, right? So you could use that in theory. Let's say if you're waiting in the doctor's office,
Oh,
you can't,
absolutely.
unless you have a cold rag you're going to take with yourself. Maybe you should do that too.
That's
But
right.
I
And
mean,
so
right? Just bring something like a cold pack. Can you just get like a cold pack that
So I
you just,
use a cold pack all the time with my clients.
okay,
And again, I give them the choice. Some of them think, oh, I want to dunk my face in a shallow bowl of ice water. And others are like, there's no way that's happening. It's about dropping your heart rate. And that's what cold water does. It's actually called the diver response or the diver reflex. And it's a way that we can get into rest and digest. Most people, when they're anxious, have a stomach ache. When your
right,
body's in fight or flight, all the blood pulls away from your stomach into your extremities for fight and flight.
right.
Yeah. And so being able to help them feel a little bit of sense of control, this tip scale is something I really work with clients on daily, several times a day, for them to work on. So when they go to those doctor's appointments, when they're ruminating in the middle of the night,
Mhm.
when they're about to tell a close friend.
Well, and that's one thing I really want to talk with you about because I know, obviously, one of the big issues for Claire, and I'm not revealing anything too much here, she kept it very, very private. And that was her choice because she felt, well, we thought we were going to get past it right away, just physically, not right away, but it would be a block in her road, but she would recover from this fully. And she just didn't want to be a point of gossip as 14-year-olds. I think she was wise in knowing that. But at the same time, she just really, when she needed to share with friends, it was a very hard thing for her to know how to do. And since meeting other people who are young adults in the dating world, in the job situation, trust me, people come up and ask me, "Oh, do you have two children?" And I have to say, "Well, I do, but one's not with me any longer." And the room comes to a screeching halt. So,
Yes.
how do you have those conversations that need to be said? How do you decide, make the call for yourself?
So I often ask a lot of my clients to think about who it is that they trust and to pick a time and place and not do it by text, not do it in a way that they are now vulnerable to other people sharing what they have decided to share in person And to keep it simple, I've been diagnosed with cancer and I'm going to begin treatment soon. Here's what I need from you. And it might be I need you to keep this quiet. I need you to check in on me because I don't like to bring it up. It could be a lot of different things. And it's okay to acknowledge the awkwardness. Hey, this is like the hardest conversation I've ever had to have.
Right.
So be prepared for their reactions. Their reaction could be curiosity, and they're asking you to share more than you're comfortable. So to be ready with that one-liner, this is all I'm ready to share today. Know that other people can take care of their own emotions. You don't need to worry about anybody else's sadness or fear. You've got your own journey ahead. And let them again know what you need. I need some privacy, some space, or I need you to keep including me in things and check in on me.
Because I think really taking away what you said there, the most important thing is this saying, this is what I need from you.
Yes,
Instead of saying, I have something to tell you, because a lot of it is anyone who cares about you is going to want to help, but they don't know what to say.
that's
And
right.
it upsets them because they love you and care about you. So they have their own set of feelings. So I think it's really important to say, this is what I need from you. But how do you start that if it's someone you've just met? If you're, again, dating,
Right, right.
when do you bring that up? Saying, hey, by the way, just so you know, I'm going through
Yeah.
this, or I have this
I
history with it. I mean, how awkward is that?
It is awkward, and I think that if you're deciding to disclose it, you've already decided that this person is somewhat trustworthy. So being able to say, "Hey, this is hard to share, but I respect you. I enjoy your company, but I've had an unfortunate diagnosis of cancer and I'm about to begin treatment," right? So being able to unapologetically show up for yourself.
Because I think the best thing is you have to put yourself forward. And I know Claire found humor worked for her
Yes, indeed.
because because she would often, I mean, for instance, uh, she had to have surgery on her ankle. They had to do a skin graft from where the mole was removed. And we had a conversation about, she's like, well, what am I going to say about this? And I said, with your recommendation, well, what do you want to say? And she said, oh, I had a fight with a shark. You should see what happened to the shark. And I was like,
Yes,
okay, because it was summer. And it kind of like, obviously she didn't, and people would know she didn't, but it was
right.
her way of kind of taking the ball and passing it back to them with a joke, which would deflect the comments further.
That's
Um,
exactly right. And so when a lot of people go through that tough period of time when they lose their hair, I had one woman tell her friends, listen, I'm coming in tomorrow with a new hairdo. And so she had had her hair or her head shaved that evening. And so the next morning, she came into a round of applause.
Right. And I think, don't you think it's how you present it that people look to see if you're okay with, and you're not always okay, and it's okay to not always be okay. But
That's
if,
right.
but it's important to show that if you are okay with it, to share that as well, because you know what? This is my deal. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm still
That's
showing up
right.
for work. I'm still coming to the sports team. I may not be running as fast because the drugs are messing me up, but I'm here. So let's, life goes on, right?
Well, and so that's really the cognitive model. And as a CBT therapist, it isn't the situation, but it's your thoughts and emotions that give meaning to an event. And if you are focused on the worst case scenario, then your thoughts and emotions will be very unhelpful to you. And never do we want anybody, do we want to minimize and say that, this isn't as awful of a journey? Of course it is. Nobody's
Right,
trying to take uh, the crappy and make it happy, right? We
right,
wouldn't do that.
right,
But what
right.
we want to help them do is this thought. which is very scary, may be true, but is it helpful? And if it's not helpful, let's come up with thoughts that are more helpful. So, oh no, I don't know how serious this cancer is. What if I never recover? That's an honest, true thought, but it's not helpful. Versus,
Right.
I'm on a journey I never wanted to be on. I want to make a list now of all the people who are here to show up for me and love me and support me. And what are some ways I can comfort myself when I'm physically in discomfort or emotionally in discomfort? And that's what I help clients try to access, is those thoughts that create feelings and behaviors that allow them to cope best with
Mhm.
something that they never wanted to handle.
No, and I found, and again, with your support, we were trying to parent her, but even obviously through this. And there's different ages and different levels of parenting. But then, of course, even if you're a partner of an older young adult, someone in their 20s or 30s, I think it's really important to let them show you the path they wanted. Like we had the discussion, should she go to a support group? Her choice was, no, I just want to be with my friends because her quest was to be normal and to feel as
Correct.
normal. And if she was with a bunch of other people who she didn't know, and the only thing they had in common was they were ill, that wasn't her vibe. That's great for a lot of people. That was not for Claire. So we had to kind of let her do that. And I always remember she set the tone because we weren't allowed to use the C word or the M
Right.
word. And
Yeah.
so when I would be as a 14, 15, until she could drive herself to school, but I would say we do it as a weather report. And I would say in the morning, how does it look today? And she'd be like, oh, it's going to be bright and sunny, which I knew like, okay, she was feeling good. If she said, there might be a storm coming in around noon, I knew to be ready that she could only
Yeah.
go so far because her physical, the medication was hitting her, or she just wasn't doing well that day.
Yes.
And so that was her code to make it as normal. But that's really hard as the person who's trying to help your loved one go through it,
Right.
because you're really turning the reins over to them. But isn't that important at any age to let them take the emotional reins?
Right. So the question you're asking is how to help them identify where their control is.
Yes. Because
Yeah,
they have no control over the biggest aspect of their life, right?
that's right. That's right. But they have control over lots of small things. And that's one of the things you were able to do, that brought Claire tremendous sense of power. Let her decide how and when to talk about this.
Mhm.
Let her decide whether she wanted to do more than individual therapy, and that was a hard no. Um, and that's okay, because group therapy um, often benefits more the caregivers.
Oh, does it really?
Absolutely, because they're all in the same lot of somebody I love dearly is going through something and I can't make it not happen. Support groups um, are great for caregivers and even for people with cancer. Some people really lean into them and like them. Um, I don't know many older teenagers that love them, but that's that sense of control. So I have a make a list on where is your sense of control? What is it that allows you to feel some sense of agency when all of a sudden you're not playing lacrosse, you're going to your oncologist, you're getting another blood draw, you're getting another scan, and that's hard.
It is. It is very hard. And it is something that's so individual and something that's so important because, again, the biggest thing in their life is out of control. And particularly when they're striving towards independence and you still have to. I have friends, a very good friend of ours, their daughter actually is going through melanoma treatment and she's in her
Mm.
early 40s, right? Clearly an adult on her own, but at the same time, the instinct is to mother that person and that child, if you would, that 42-year-old child,
Yes.
and to help her through it. And yet you have to realize this is her life. Like what do you do? How do you help them? How do you advise and be there and yet make them feel like, oh, come on, I don't need my mommy now. I'm a grown up.
So the question for that mom is, what does love look like to you? Does
Oh,
it look like me flying out there and staying with you? Does it look like me coming in for visits, taking you to appointments? What does it look like for you?
and that's the big key, love and support, because that's what we have to offer them. And if nothing else, when the world gets scary, that's what you know you have from the
That's right.
people that count so much. Um, April, thank you just, so much. I have to laugh because I see you have Claire's painting
I
behind you.
do. I
That
do.
painting Claire had done, just for listeners, that was her junior year art project. And posthumously, it was chosen for the Rock and Roll Marathon in New Orleans one year. So we were able to print up a lot. And I just, it's Charleston. Claire just absolutely loved
That's
Charleston. But I
right.
guess
That's right.
they looked enough, the battery down there, but it looked enough like New Orleans that I guess they thought it was one of theirs. So I didn't say no. Go ahead, take it.
She would have gotten a laugh
Oh
out
my
of that.
gosh. Do you have, without obviously disclosing any privacy, but do you have I always like to think of her and smile at the end, a little Clarism that you can share in your time with her?
One of the funnier things that helped her cope, and that was really humor. Claire loved her phone,
Oh my goodness, yes.
right?
Yes.
And so she would keep it by her side always. And I would always say to her, this is your session. So, like, you get to actually say to me, give me a second, I'm getting a flood of texts. And you get to decide sort of how you use your time here.
Right.
And it was really freeing because she was like, could I get that in writing for my parents that I get to tell them that I get to use this anytime I want, when I want? And it was that sort of sense of humor that helped her manage the really hard days.
It certainly did. And you did so much to help her again. And I just,
It's an honor.
thank you so much, and for all you do for other young people and striving forward to make the best of their life. And this is just such a great honor to have you join me today and to share this information, because I know we talk about it and how
Yes,
important it is to get it out there. And we've been talking about this for a long time. How are we going to do it? And here we are. Look at us doing the podcast together. Thank you, April. And of
an
course, if
honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd like more information about what we've talked about here today, obviously you can go to our website, clairemariefoundation.org. The link will be in our episode notes, along with any information that we can forward to you about this topic. I want to offer a big, big thanks to our mission sponsors who make this happen for us with this podcast, Castle Biosciences and Children's Cancer Foundation. Thank you so much. Go forth, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Celebrate the joy, color, and beauty of the world, and live life like Claire. We'll see you next time.